Be here at the conference again. I've been here 2 or 3 times before, and most of our presentations are forward-looking. And okay, so why get out of a good job that was really one of the best jobs I think I've ever had, because I got to go all over Mexico and see all of the properties that the geologists were working on. Phelps Dodge had very good geologists working, and they were bringing in a lot of different projects. So with that, I got very, very familiar with Mexico. And so I probably owe what happened next thanks to Phelps Dodge. So why do it? What was special? Well, I thought because of the market conditions at that time, and in a general sense, Phelps Dodge was getting out of Mexico, and I thought I'd continue working here. It was a great place to work, good economic possibilities, and for discovery of mineral deposits, and all of the deposits that were being investigated were those that were exposed at the surface. And it probably still is that way. The people that were participating with me in this were basically myself and Mark Isaacs, and we talked about this a little bit in 2002 and finally got the ball rolling in 2003. We had some other Mexican partners, but it was difficult for them to get along without a paycheck, and we had to live without a paycheck for about 2 or 3 years there. So they were eventually bought out by other seed investors. Important in the group was Eric and David Coffin brothers that operated the Hard Rock Advisory publication. First thing we had to do was get in, set up bank accounts, means to bring in foreign money, because that was what was needed to start the company rolling. And we had to navigate through all the legal hurdles to get companies established and get all the registrations that were necessary. So I set up to go with some special trends and styles of mineralization that I thought was worth looking at with great potential, especially here in Sonora and in other places in Mexico. One of them was a paraluminous mesothermal gold trend, which mainly is embodied in the Caborca mega shear trend of northwest Mexico. That also includes the southern Baja trend, which is also a paraluminous trend. Paraluminous meaning high alumina type intrusives and environment, so that two mica granite, biotite, muscovite is one of your typical hallmarks of a paraluminous trend. The others, second on the list, would be the epithermal low sulfidations, Sierra Madre being a big zone of high density deposits and districts that still have a lot more deposits to be found in that zone. And second, or third and fourth would be scar and replacement style gold deposits, and those still haven't gained a lot of recognition yet in Mexico, but other than the Guerrero Gold Belt, but they're growing, and there are quite a few still left. And then the epithermal high sulfidation. Those were our targets to search for new deposits. Okay, the denouncement process was the main method of making, acquiring lands in that time. Making deals with concession owners was also the second, but we denounced some very large areas and acquired about 5 or 6 different concession areas at that time. And only one of them was making an agreement. Later on, we did make other agreements and studied those mineralized zones. Okay, so once we had that Mexican company up and operating and had 5 or 6 projects in it, we needed to go ahead and get more money, and that came from Canada. That's the only place that we could find that had money available to invest. A Canadian shell company was found called Skinny Technology. It had a storage system for computer compression that was the common fallback position of mining companies when it went into the trough of a very serious economic depression also. So that company was on the shelf. We negotiated with the owner. It had about 60 million shares out. They did a 15-to-1 rollback, so those shareholders got consolidated pretty severely back on their stock positions. I think the company then had about 5 million shares outstanding. And then from that point, it went forward with new ownerships, including myself and the other founders, who at that time included about 10 different investors. Qualifying report was completed, and it was a strange qualifying report. It covered 6 different projects, and later we had to get special permission to get that focused on one property as a qualifying project. So therefore, by definition, it was an RTO company, or a reverse takeover. Our company took over the shell, went forward with starting trading on the market in the Toronto Stock Exchange and under the venture exchange format. Brad Alix was the president, and he had a lot of debt. The Coffin owners' brothers lined up other directors who were very good directors that stayed with us through the whole life of the company. And later on, Chester Miller and a couple of others came in and also were participants in the company. So what we found was that our current president at that time was unable to devote the time to the company, and it languished for about 6 months, and we decided we had to go get another president. So we interviewed 2 or 3 other people in Vancouver at a meeting. We selected Gary Freeman. He wanted to start developing his own course of working companies up through the process in Vancouver and eventually on the Toronto Exchange, so that he became the president and immediately got money raised and started to do work on projects. So in 2006, we're at work in the field, and it was a very active year. We had drilling projects getting started on some of the concessions that we'd acquired. We had sampling programs, getting reports done, sometimes a headache to get people to write the reports and get the data consolidated for a presentation. And the activities were reported to the market on news releases, and news releases had to go out pretty frequently. They say you have to, in a bear market, the bear can hibernate, but to have a bull market, you got to feed the bull every day. So we had to put out a lot of information, try to keep the market apprised of what was going on and keep the interest there. So we were able to bring in the drills in 2006, which was a difficult time to find drills. Everything was committed. And so we had to scramble to get drills from even outside of Mexico and help bring a couple in. We did a project, the Juliana in Mulatos, oddly enough, our first real drill program. And now that's now part of the Agnico Eagle India holdings in the Mulatos region. The core drilling was done on Lista Blanca gold copper project up in Caborca. It's got a slight affinity to a porphyry copper type system. We JV'd it with Inmat for some pediment exploration and drilling undercover. And we also trenched and drilled at the Coronella project, and I think that's also a project that's in play right now too. So finally our stock prices start to move up above $1, and that was big news for us. We held a project in Baja California through all that process, and that was the one that we considered most important, but we had some adjacent concessions that weren't owned by the company, and most of the people in the company wanted to hold off and not drill it until we could get the concession issue settled. We tried, but it wasn't possible at that time for various reasons. And so my decision was to go ahead and drill the area where the target was. It was outside the concession boundary by enough room that it wasn't going to be a problem. We got, and within this project was the what was called the Colinas project that had Echo Bay drilling that established anywhere from 250,000 to 350,000 ounces of gold. And the area had come free in 2003, and we acquired that by denouncing the area. Echo Bay had left the scenario pretty much as a player in Mexico because of a lot of different problems that they had financially. But to our benefit, we were able to pick that up. And when I looked it up, that concession, it had been free for about a month before we denounced it. So thankfully, it was still there. We jumped into a drilling program with a core drill that we got from a person managing programs in Alaska, and the drill was a core rig with thin wall core system. It was set up for the cold weather, but not the warm weather. And by the time we got it going, it was June or March, and by the time we got to the Planis zone, it was June. So it kept getting hotter and hotter, and they were having problems with their hydraulics overheating, et cetera, et cetera. And we finally moved into the area where the Planis deposit was discovered, and they put 3 holes in sequence in at the areas I thought were the best for the target. You probably can't see this very well, but we got the Echo Bay hole at the top was number 120, and it had an intercept down about 150 meters, and then at the bottom of the hole finished, it was still in mineralization. But it didn't connect to anything at that time, so they were closing their program. They left, and you could probably talk to Craig Gibson on more of the details of why that happened, but they left. And we were able to get that data from Kinross with an agreement. And so we had that data to go on. And the 3 holes under that, the first one was drill hole 18. And it went with an angle down to about 185 meters and twisted off. It was thin wall core, got into tougher shear zones, and so they just twisted it off. So I moved them about 200 meters north, and between the Echo Bay hole and the 18 was about 250 meters. So I moved them off. You could see it got a pretty good interval of gold mineralization, no silver. And we went to 19, and that one encountered drilling problems also at about 150 meters, or 115 meters. And it just got stuck. They had to cut the end of the drill string off and pull out. And then on the following one, 20, they were drilling, and of course it was June at that time. It was very hot, and they said, we just can't run our machine any further. So I said, okay, let's just call it quits, and we'll say the contract's done and you guys can go to Alaska. And it was really hot. I mean, it was probably 45 degrees centigrade there. And so we got Lane had a SRAM drill available and for RC. We started drilling with the RC at that point. We'd definitely proven there was a good mineralized zone there with those core holes. It was oxidized in the host rock, which is granitic in character, and I think in none of those 3 holes we saw any sulfide. The sulfide zone was determined later to be about 100 meters down before it was encountered, and it was in a mixed oxide sulfide zone that also had good leaching characteristics. So the real kicker that probably sent the news people scrambling was our drill hole 7, which got into sulfide, but we had a very good intercept there, nearly 4 grams, and within that was 18 meters of, I think, up to 20 grams on an average. And so that was a good basic discovery. So that was kind of the sequence that we got there. So at that point, we decided that we had to increase the concession size. We added some more concessions around there. And the stock price topped at about $3.70 a share. And in that time, note the time, it was late 2007 going into 2008. And it wasn't very long after that the market collapsed. And the stock went all the way down to about 40 cents, so about 10% of what it started at with the discovery. We also added another gold deposit. My wife was involved with helping sell some concessions, and she said, take a look at the La Colorada mine because it's available. And so my thinking then was we'd been driving by it a lot, going out to different areas, and it was basically an old mine with all of the economic vitality taken out of it. But in review of the data that came out, there was at least 600,000 ounces, and then later we found another report that had it up over 1 million, maybe 1,000,001 ounces in resource and reserves at the time of shutdown. And the shutdown time was when gold was at 270 to 280, and it's surprising that they were able to make any money at all at that time, but it was very minor amount of profit. La Colorado turned out to be with the data well over 1 million ounces, and it's the one that with fusion with Argonaut, it's been producing now since 2012, so about 5 or 6 years now of production. The San Antonio project, which includes the Planis and the Colinas zone, is still awaiting production. It'd be a very good mine, but they have permitting difficulties with the La Paz, Baja California politics. So that's probably still being worked on. I hear from people that tell me in Argonaut, and I wish them well on it. It's going to be a very good mine at some point. The company got, at that point, which was around 2000 or 2009, where we were being reviewed by a number of people looking for other resources. Of course, as I had in an earlier slide, there was about a 3 million ounce resource in the holdings of the company, and with potential to grow. A number of offers came in from combining Capital Gold, Castillo, and Timmins at that time, and of course everything was talked about and rejected. But finally we got to a good offer from Argonaut, and they took over at around $1.80 a share, the Pediment Company. And so they completed the merger in 2011. Early 2011, about a year and a half later, 2012, they reached a high of about $11. So the shareholders did come out pretty well on the whole start to finish of the company. Conclusions, it's good to have a rising market to help get the financing, and we're still waiting for that to happen right now with some new companies on the line. Also good to have dedicated administration so that they can keep the fundraising and dedicating the funds to the drilling and exploration that needs to be done. Drilling is the route to discovery, and all the drilling companies are going to be happy to hear that. We calculated our total per ounce cost in the ground at around $5 an ounce from both deposits. They were both worked out about the same. And this presentation is dedicated to two people that really were instrumental along the way for it all happening. The one on the right's David Coffin. He died about 6 years ago. And more recently, in the last 3 months, Gary Freeman died, passed away. So in a way, this is dedicated to both those individuals. So that's it, and if you have any questions, you can catch me now or later.